As we inch closer to the start of the NBA preseason, most rosters are nearly complete in their construction, which means NBA championship odds have begun to roll out for next season. But how often do these sportsbooks get these right and predict the winner before the season? Today, we're going to take a look at the last 10 years to see how often the preseason odds end up being correct. Before we begin, big shout out to covers.com for being the best archive of historical odds I could find. They do use different sportsbooks odds every year, so I'm not sure which year is which sportsbook or if it's a complete average, but this is the best overall archive I could find. For each season, we will also use the final preseason odds listed as our determiner for if the books got it right. The odds move throughout the preseason as well as throughout the season, but we're going to look at the very last one for most of these somewhere in August or October. So we will start 10 years ago in the 2016-2017 season, which was a toss-up gimme for the books between the Cavs and the Warriors. This is that prime of when the season basically began, wrapped up before opening day, and it was guaranteed to be one of these two teams. The addition of Kevin Durant to the already insane Golden State squad gave them the nod as the preseason favorites, favored at -128, with LeBron and company trailing at +385. No one else was anywhere near them, and ultimately it came down to those two teams, and the Warriors added ring number 2 of the dynasty to help the books start 1-1. Ring number 3 comes quickly after in the 2017-18 season, as the overpowered Dubs were again favorites at -187, and the Cavs the only team relatively close at +515. Now, because of this dynasty, the books get a nice little 2-for-2 blanket so far. Something to note for the season was the late season push by the Rockets, actually dragging the Warriors into positive money, but were unable to pass them at any point as the favorites. 2018-19 is where we actually get to have some fun, and the sportsbooks had to work. Our eventual champs finished number 5 in the final preseason odds, with Toronto having +1850 odds. The Warriors, Celtics, Rockets, and Lakers all had better odds, with Golden State still in the negative money at -168 heading into the year. The books pick up a loss in what was the start of a new era of parity in the NBA. This era makes the books work much harder moving forward. This is also one of the farthest misses that the sportsbooks have. They have not missed very often, as you'll see throughout this list. 2019-20 was a very weird year for obvious reasons. No one could predict the finals being in late summer in a bubble in Orlando, but the sportsbooks were pretty damn close to getting it right. They favored a Kawhi repeat, giving the new look Clippers the best odds at +425. This was the most open the title had looked, as 6 teams are under +1,000 odds heading into the season. The eventual champion Lakers were on that list at +450, very, very close to being the preseason favorite. But alas, the books dropped to 2-for-4. A Lakers repeat was the favorite heading into the shortened 2020-21 season at +275. That did not happen, but again, the number 2 odds hit, with the Bucks being the eventual champions holding +550 preseason odds. Halfway through, the Bucks have really only been fooled with Toronto, which even wasn't a terrible miss in terms of where they had them ranked. So they are 2-for-5, but they haven't been too far off. 2021-22 looked to be the year Brooklyn brings home a ring, entering the season as the favorites with +240 odds. The eventual champion Warriors were in the mix at +900, again keeping the majority of champions under the +1,000 mark in the preseason odds. So the books aren't hitting, but they aren't completely whiffing either. 2022-23 is the closest that we have gotten to the books being surprised in these last 10 years. The season opened with the Boston Celtics as the favorites at +500, with a few teams nearby. However, the eventual champion Denver Nuggets were not one of those teams, instead down at 9th with +1,800 odds. This is the last time that the books have completely missed hitting into the season, now dropping them in 2 of 7. A 9th place finish in the preseason odds is the worst on this list, and just one of 2 to be over the +1,000 mark. The 2023-24 odds actually have a tied favorite in the last poll of the odds, with the Celtics and the Bucks tied at +400. The Celtics do end up being the champion, so we'll give Vegas the win here, moving them up to 3 of 8. These two teams kind of went back and forth a little bit throughout the summer and early into the season, but like I said, we'll give it to them to help them out. A Celtics repeat was the favored outcome heading into the 2024-25 season, with the repeat odds sitting at +310. OKC, the eventual champs, sat at number 2 at +500. Again, not a bad miss, as we have surprisingly seen in this era of parity. but the books do drop to 3 of 9. And finally, in the 2025-26 season, OKC opened as favorites at plus 240, with Denver at plus 550 and Cleveland at plus 750. The eventual champion, the New York Knicks, rounded out the top 4 and was the last of all the teams under plus 1,000, sitting at plus 900 themselves to open up the season. So this does give Vegas a final hit rate of 30% over the last 10 years in having the best odds go to the eventual NBA champion. However, I think it is interesting that 80% of the time, the eventual champion was under plus 1,000 odds. Vegas has really only whiffed twice over the last 10 years, one of those including the end of the Warriors dynasty, where they were so favored it skewed a lot of the other odds. They may not get it completely right, which is very hard to predict, but they usually and very often have the eventual champion as a highly favored team, which does make sense given that there hasn't been a ton of absolute shocks in the last 10 years. It's not like we've had any 5 or 6 seeds go on and win the finals. It's usually been one of the top few seeds in either conference. So what can this tell us about the upcoming season odds? Well, as of recording, 4 teams sit under that plus 1,000 number. The defending champion Knicks, the league runner-up Spurs, a recent champion OKC, and this new look Sixers, led by the additions of Jaylen Brown and LeBron James. Of course, none of this is betting advice, but the numbers from the last decade suggest that one of these 4 teams will raise the trophy at the end of the year. Now, I personally think that the title is much more open this year, and that's just my opinion. I think there's some good value for some of the teams like the Celtics, the Cavs, even my Wolves. The Pistons could be a fun team. Toronto has decent odds if they are able to pull off this Kawhi trade. I am pretty surprised that there's only the 4 teams under the plus 1,000 mark, but like I said, that's just my opinion. What do you think of the current odds? Are there any sleepers you see out there? Comment your thoughts down below, and thanks for watching.